Sometimes we don't listen to the lessons our parents have tried to teach us, or we have to fight hard for honor and to live better lives. This is what happens in the two graphic novels I read, and I'm going to tell you all about it. So this month I ended up getting back into reading graphic novels, and I haven't read them in a while. So, when I found these two and I was reading the synopsis about them, I was like, yes, these two are the ones that I need to get back into, especially one of them. One of them I just could not miss the opportunity of reading because it is from my favorite superheroes. We're going to talk about that one a little bit later. But what I am going to do is I'm not going to go too into detail on either one of these because I don't want to give any kind of spoilers. Now, the first one I'm going to tell you about is called The Night Eaters, and that's written by Marjorie Liu and illustrated by Sana Takeda. All right, so Night Eaters is about these two twins, Millie and Billy, and their mother Ipo. She's always telling them, you need to take care of these plants. You got to take care of the plants. They don't care about taking care of these plants. They have a restaurant. They just want to go ahead and run their restaurant and live the lives that they want to live. They just think it's stupid that their mom is so into them taking care of these plants. So the mom was like, all right, I told y'all to take care of these plants. So y'all don't let these die. So I'm going to give you one more chance. And she has them take care of herbs. Of course, they let the herbs die. So she's like, all right, well, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Across the street from their house is this house that's been trying to be sold forever. It's like this haunted looking house. And it's got all these weeds and vines and everything just growing all over the house. The twins are like, okay, Mom, you got to be out of your mind to think that we're going to sit here and we're going to do something and clean up this house. We can go ahead and we can hire somebody to do that, and that'll help the realtor that's trying to sell this house. The mother's like, no, you're going to plant a plant right at the house. And the kids are like, by the way, I say kids, but these are adults. They're like, Mom, we can hire somebody to do this. We can get a landscaper. I mean, we are in New York. We're going to find a landscaper. It's not going to be a hard thing to do. But the mother's like, nope, y'all are going to do it. She gives them a plant. She gives them both shovels, and she was like, start digging. So they're trying to dig, and as they're trying to dig, they cannot get through the soil. They're like, this is crazy. We're digging, we're putting our all into getting into the soil, and we cannot break this soil. So the mother, she's like, give it here. Takes the shovel from one of them, slams it into the ground, and they're looking at her like, what kind of special human strength do you have, woman? We have been trying over and over to break this soil, and we cannot break this soil. So they're looking at the father, and the father was like, well, your mom has been planting plants for a long time, so of course she has some kind of strength now. And the father is just like, he just is like there. He's just like, you see what she can do, so I think you better go ahead and do what she asked you to do. So they're like digging in this ground that's across the street. And then all of a sudden they find this skeleton. It's not a person skeleton. They're trying to figure out, like, what is this? It's some kind of animal. And they're like scared. They're like, oh my gosh, we got to go, Mom. We got to go. And the mother is like, no, plant the plant. And like, we just found a skeleton. And you're going to tell us to plant the plant? You are crazy. So now the twins are like thinking the mother, she concocted this whole scheme and she done dug up the earth already, and she done put the skeleton in there to scare them. Well, they end up going to dinner at the house. They're eating dinner, and the brother isn't there. It's just the sister and the mother and father. And then all of a sudden, the brother comes, and he's like, oh, have you heard about the house across the street? I found out that it was haunted. And he tells a story about how it was a husband and a wife that lived in the house. The husband apparently kills the wife and is still alive. And then, so the kids are like, okay, we got to ask him these questions. We need to go find the husband. But they found the husband in this retirement center. So they go to the retirement center so they can meet the husband. And then he's like blabbering. His mind is just not there. He's blabbering. He's asking about a doll. So they're like, okay, well, this is crazy. Sure, yeah, whatever. So they're there and they're asking him questions. And he like gets too overly excited and like, I kid you not, this sounds crazy. It's like an eyeball of his is like burst out of his head. So the kids are like, again, I keep calling them kids, but they're adults. So the twins are like, we got to get up out of here. And they just book it out of that place. They're like, okay, yeah, ma, we're not doing anything with that house. And the mother's like, no, you're doing this out the house. And she yanks the sister and yanks her into the house. And the brother is like, oh, well, good luck with ma. And the dad is behind him like, no, your mom said to go. And he kicks the brother in the house. So the kids are in the twins. I'm trying to stop calling them kids because, again, they are not kids. But the twins are in the house and they're trying to get out, but the door is like locked. So they're in this house, and then a lot of things start happening while they're in the house. And they find out that there is something in the house. While the twins are locked in the house and the mother is doing whatever she's doing while they're in this house, people are coming to look at the house because, again, there's a realtor that's actually trying to sell this house. So he brings three people into the house, and as they're looking into the house, all of a sudden, like, something just attacks all three of them, and it kills one person and completely hurts the other two people. And the realtor, he like gets them and books it out of there. And then, like I said, I don't want to go too much into detail. Like, I'm going into way too much detail right now because it'll end up spoiling it. But the realtor and the other two men, they're able to get out of the house because the father comes. By the way, I've not said the parents' name. Yes, the twins' names are Millie and Billy. Ipo is the mother, and I want to say it's Keon. That's the father. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but it's like Keon, Keon. So he comes in there and he helps the other people get out. Meanwhile, one of the people that went in there, her face is gone. Like, she got killed. So it's the brother and the sister, and they're like fighting their way out of everything. The mother and the father are just sitting at the table like, okay, yeah, well. The father is like, you put our kids through this. I think it went a little too hard on them. The mother is like, oh, well, we can have more. And the father is like, yeah, I don't want to have more. I'm partial to the ones that we have. They're having this conversation, and they ended up going for the kids and saving the kids from the thing that's in the house. Now, the thing is, you find out what the mother and father are, and you get glimpses of how the kids were when they were actually not kids. You get glimpses of how the twins were when they were kids. And I'm just not going to go any further because I will spoil that. So we're just going to leave that there. For me, this book had a lot of funny moments. And it's not that you could just, it's one of those things where it was funny on page because of what they were saying, but you also had to look at the art. And that just made it even funnier. The way the faces were drawn, the actions, the way they did everything. It just made it so much better. I think it's something that could not have worked as a normal novel. It had to be like a graphic novel, or even it could be an anime. Either way, the comedy was amazing for me. The story was funny. The story had me captivated. And there's a second book to it, so I gotta read the second book. But this one, I had to give it a 4.5. Now, I gotta tell you about my favorite superheroes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I am so out of the loop when it comes to that comic book series. I didn't even know that this existed. I ended up like looking one day online. I was looking for books at Target. I was on Target.com. I wasn't in the store. And I saw this and I was like, yep, in my cart. I got to get it. I quickly bought it. If you had never heard of The Last Ronin, I'm telling you, it is amazing. It is this graphic novel. It collects 5 issues of the story. And it stars, of course, all the Ninja Turtles. And it has a cast of like a lot of favorite characters and familiar characters. If you've ever like watched any of the movies or the cartoons, you know who a lot of these characters are. So just like when I spoke about the Night Eaters, I'm going to do the same thing here because it'll spoil everything. And the way it's set up in the very beginning of the graphic novel, you don't know what turtle that you're reading about. So I'm not going to say any of the turtles' names. I'm not, when I talk about like what they were doing, I'm not going to say any of that because it'll spoil it. So it starts off with one of the turtles in this building, and they are fighting like all the foot soldiers. They're fighting machines. They're fighting like everything because who they're trying to get to is Oroku Hiroto. And if you don't know who that is, which at first I was like, who in the world is this? It is the Shredder's grandson. They're going after the Shredder's grandson because he killed the other three turtles as well as Splinter. So they're like, nope, you done messed up my whole life and you done killed my whole family, so you got to die. So they're going through this and they're going through the fight, and then they end up getting to him, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. They get kicked out the building. They fall from like, I don't even remember how high it was, but they fell from like a far height up in the air. They land on the ground, and when they land, they're like extremely hurt and wondering, how am I not dead? Why am I still alive? And they end up falling out. So when they come to, they're in this bed and they find out that they are in fact underground in the old turtle's hideout. And I'm gonna tell you at this point, you do find out which turtle it is because April comes in and April says their name, but I'm not gonna say who it is. Let me tell you, well, when I read this part, I was just saying, oh, it's gonna be funny if it's insert my favorite turtle's name. And I am going to tell you, it was my favorite turtle. So I got hyped. So April is like picking them up with speed, and they're looking at April and they're realizing, oh, wait, what happened to you? April now has a prosthetic arm and a prosthetic leg. So she ends up telling the story of how that happened. And on top of that, you find out that April had a child and she had a daughter. And the daughter's name is Casey, as in Casey Jones. So the story goes on how this turtle, they found out of how Shredder and their other brothers were killed and told how they were going after Shredder's grandson because they want to avenge the death of their family. So when that's all told, Casey's like, oh yeah, I'm down for it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And this turtle is like, I don't think so. Like, you have no kind of training. You have nothing. And then Casey is like, yeah, I do. And Casey shows them that they have started to learn, well, she has started to learn martial arts by reading some of Splinter's old scrolls. So this turtle is like, cool, okay, you got that. So I'll train you. I'll give you the training that I got before we go into this war. And Casey is like, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. And this turtle noticed some stuff about Casey as they were watching the fight. So he went to April and he was like, I need you to answer this question for me, and I need you to be very honest with me. April's like, yeah. Was like, yeah, I noticed Casey has this extra strength and speed, and I need to know if she's been enhanced. And April was like, don't you even ask me that question. I did not put her in the ooze. I did not inject her with the ooze. She has nothing to do with that radiation that got you guys. So you have never watched Ninja Turtles in any way, shape, or form, or even read anything about the Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles used to be actual turtles. What happened is it was this ooze, this toxin that got over the turtles, and it made them grow. And that is how they became who they are. So he's wondering if April did something to her daughter so that she could be genetically enhanced. And April is like, no, it's not that I did something. It's because we were around you. That's her and Casey Jones. We were around you guys for so long that we didn't know that the toxins and the radiation from being around you were actually changing our own DNA. And when we had our daughter, Casey, that transferred over to her. So it goes on, the book goes on to them going through this war and this turtle actually finally getting to Oroku Hiroto and having the final fight. This fight was big. It was massive. It was Casey and her crew and April and this crew that April knew, like military, like everybody was going up against this man so that they can finally get him out of power because he was taking over New York and he like had them in this world where he was king and whatever he said was what went. So in the end, the turtle and Oroku Hiroto, they end up getting into this large fight, and this turtle finally did what they were supposed to do, and they did end up killing him on top of that turtle dying as well. When I saw that, I got mad. I was like, wait a minute. You went through all of this, fighting this man, training, everything you can, and you die anyway? So there is a epilogue at the end of the main story, and it shows Casey and April O'Neil still doing what they're doing. Casey training, She's training her crew. They're still fighting the Foot Clan because they're trying to get them up out of the power from the Foot Clan. Because even though Shredder's grandson died, the Foot Clan is still trying to hold on to their power in New York. Then there's like a little thing that made you go, oh, well, made me go, oh, where you see Casey is now raising 4 more turtles. And they're not the Ninja Turtles yet, but they're regular turtles. When I read this and I was done, there was no question. 5 stars. I was like, nope. I already know you get 5 stars. I loved this book. Seeing some of the characters I remember from the cartoons, as well as characters that were new to me, and how seamless it fit into like the lore that I've known from watching the show or from watching all the movies. There was no option for me but to give this a high rating. And it didn't even have to be anything like that for me to give it a high rating. After reading it, I think even if I didn't know anything about it, I would be kind of confused. That's one thing I will say though. If you don't know any of the lore from at least watching one of the cartoons or watching one of the movies, you will be kind of confused about who these people are and why there's such a significance with these people, with the characters in it. But I will tell you, because I did know all of that, for me, it was very high. It was like nostalgia that made it, and the story is just good. So I couldn't help but to give it a high rating. And I found out that there's like another one. So I was like, I got to go read that one ASAP. I think it's like a prequel to this, or it's like afterwards, like what's going on with Casey and April now. So like I said, I had 2 graphic novels to tell you about, and I tried my hardest, even though a lot of times I wanted to say so much. I try not to spoil anything because I think that is something that you should read. Me getting back to graphic novels and these 2 being the ones that I got back to, I cannot wait to read some more. Like I say, whatever graphic novel I pick up, I cannot wait for the story and for the story to take me wherever it's going to go. And when it comes to these 2, I can't wait to continue them. So I hope you enjoyed this review, even though, I tried not to say much. So it may have been a little but like I said, there's so much that happens in these graphic novels that would be spoiled if I said too much. So I was trying to curb what I had to say. I hope you at least pick up one of them. If not one, both. Listen, I say you pick up both because they were both good. Until next time, later.